You can hear me now. Um, last time we were here, we're doing, transfer pricing, and we need to proceed with where we were last time. And I think that's what we are doing. So I'd wish we continue with where we left last time. So let's proceed with where we left. We're doing transfer pricing. We did some examples. We've done some rules. That make transfer pricing be managed. What is called we explained what is called goal congruency, which means basically you are trying to make sure that companies work the divisions within the structure of the organization, which are under the transfer pricing, are able to to work in harmony. And that's what the rules are about. So as we said, it is a competition it creates competition within the organization because of the division coming up with ways of trying to enhance their performances. And in that process, there's need, of course, it can bring also unhealthy competition. So we came up with that's where there's goal congruency. So it's competition of trying to share the profit generally made by the overall company. But this competition, as we said, should be, of course, not exceeding the goals, or should not go beyond the company's needs or company's objectives. So generally, it should be a healthy competition that will pre-exist between the divisions. So I think unless there is anybody with a question, I shared the Excel on the previous issue. I think you could check that. Unless I did it, but I think I tried to share it. Unless I forgot maybe to share, but I think I did it. So if you got the Excel, and we are just to give a brief understanding, we had come to an understanding that there is what is called minimum transfer pricing, or there is how you come up with the minimum transfer pricing and how you come up with the maximum transfer pricing. That is, there's a division, which is the receiving division, which creates the boundaries of maximum. And then there's a division, which is called the division that is doing the transfer, creates what is called the minimum that it may expect. So it is a push and pull, just like a customer has the minimum he wants to pay, and the seller has the maximum he also can expect maybe you to charge you or something like that. So those are the cases. The seller has the minimum, actually, not the buyer. The seller is the one who has the maximum he can accept from you, and you have also this amount. So anyway, it is the push and pull. In this case, there's a division which is buying. The division that is buying always set the maximum. The division that is selling always set the minimums. Hey, just a minute, there's some background noise interrupting. Let me mute it. So that's what we were doing last time, and we were supposed to do some example, and then we go to the question. And I think that's where we are. There are some past paper question. One I was referred to was from 20. Is it August 2020, 2023? Yeah, somebody told me that. And then there is July. There is also 2021, and of course the others also could be having that. So we need to go through that. So if there is no question, and you got the Excel, we went through all that. We stopped on example 6. So I was supposed to continue with example 7, and then I do example 8, and then we be done with what we are doing in that process. So I was supposed to do example 7, and then after example 7, I move to another example where there is a limiting capacity, which will assist us to understand the idea of the question we want to do in the past paper, which is August 2023, and the rest of that. So anyway, so we were on example 7. If there is no question on what we went through last time, then there was an example 7. Now, example 7 as you may notice, it is also has, you know, that we had actually started until people said they were tired. So this is what it is, to just, you know, go through again and read the question. Division A has costs of $8 per unit and transfers to Division B, which has an additional cost of $4, additional cost of $4 per unit. Division B sells externally at 20. Determine the sensible range. Determine the sensible range. The sensible range for the transfer price in order to achieve goal congruency. If Division B can buy part, you know, part finished goods externally. So this is where we were. We remember last time, if you remember well, just excuse me. Last time, if you remember well, we had given the supplying division, or the division which is transferring, an option of navigating, option of outside externally. Now here, this example is introducing another dynamic, which is to give Division B, which is the division receiving the product, an option to buy outside. So it means this are, of course, I had copy pasted it, but this should move here. So it has an option of buying outside. It has an option of buying outside. I had copy pasted this from previous, but to add the factors here, this is $8. This is what it cost it, $8 to Division A. Maybe I could put just below it here to be specific here. Then here it has its own additional cost. Its own additional cost, they have said, is $4 on top of what it will buy from here. And then it can sell externally at $20. It can sell externally at $20. So that's what we have. But remember, now Division B can decide not to buy from A, because it can buy. So according to option 1, there is an option of $14. Or another, we need to test another required A is $14. How will $14 be able to be determined? And another one will be, of course, $18 per unit. So let's start with $14. So at $14, it can also secure the same component that is offered here. It can secure from other organization outside, apart from its organization. So it has an option which it can secure this outside at $14. So let's find out what will be the minimums again, and what will be the maximums in this regard. We need to create the rule. What will be the rule? Now, this rule will be applied, especially when you solve a question and you read the context of the question and realize that Division B, which we can call the receiving division, has an option. Yet the other time we did where Division now A, which is the supply division or the selling division, has an option to sell outside. So here, Division B, which is the division which is the buying division, has an option to secure that buying from outside. So what will determine the agreement, the stipulations of what they can set the boundaries? Now, we all started, of course, just like last time, there was the minimums, and of course, there was the maximum that we needed to determine to set that pace for this. So in this case, as we are doing the minimums and maximums, we are analyzing independently, because some people are asking why you not take these. No, we are analyzing them independently for them to set the negotiations platform for that. So this, of course, if you check, this was to give us what will be the minimum TP, and of course, this will give us what will be the maximum TP or transfer price. So in this case, of course, this will still be the same way as it is, because it has an option, of course, of trying to buy this outside. So what will happen in this context? Let's see what will be the minimums and what will be the maximums that they may negotiate with. And that's what we need to factor in. So in this case, of course, the minimum is still the marginal cost. Now it has no option of selling outside, so it is still the original, base foundation or fundamental strategy. So it is marginal cost. And marginal cost here is the $8. And we said it should be, of course, greater than for them to be in the mood of making that. So then, let's test now the division A. Division A happens to have another option which it can buy from outside. Remember, we have what is called, the analysis to do on it independently to set the boundaries that it can use to negotiate this. So this division here, let's analyze it. First of all, we know it has what is called, we call it as they call it in that context, net NRNM, which is referred to as net marginal revenue. Net marginal revenue. Let's calculate its net marginal revenue as the maximum which it started, because you start with the foundation that it has and add on the thing that is bringing in the negotiation and see what it will be. So, like in this case, the net marginal revenue, if you take the selling price that they have, the selling price that they are having here is $20, less, of course, the additional cost before the transfer price coming. So the additional cost which it has, the additional cost is, of course, the $4. So when you subtract the two, it gives you 16, and that is the NRM. So the NRM, which is net revenue margin, net revenue marginal, is $16. So $16, it is as that. That is what they have at the, they can play with it. It can either turn into losses. They can play with it. It can either turn into profits. So it's up to them. But of course, the objective, as we say, the goal congruency is that the company, the division, all of them should share profit if it's profit being made. If one is making a loss, then the goal congruency is, of course, compromised at that point, because it could lead to further scrutiny that could escalate into other conflicts. So that is 16. Now, remember, it can also buy externally. So you're supposed to compare. So it has an option. It has an option of buying externally. It has an option of buying externally. So it can buy outside. It has an option of buying externally, and the option of buying externally, it can buy at $14. Rationally, it is the buying division we're talking about, because this is the buyer. If I'm a buyer, I'll go with the lower cost, because I have two options. I have this and that. So in the context, then of course it is a cost in this, while this one it's a revenue in this case, because it is a seller in that case. So it set the minimum it can get, while this one set, of course, the maximum it can buy, of course, to minimize the cost impact it has. So if you compare between the two, then you compare between the option, and the rationale is that they want to minimize their cost. So they will set, of course, with where it is on a kind of a minimum level for that case. So as you check that, that is what you need to know. So in this context, compare the two options it has. I said whenever there is two options, it creates the competition angle in this case. So compare the two options because of that. So if you compare the two options, you have to pick the lower of the two. The lower of the two would make sense based on the fact that it is cost that it is picking up. So if you compare the two, you pick 14, and 14 set its maximum for that. So they can only negotiate this because they can buy. Why are we taking 14? Because they have an option, they can buy it from outside at that philo. So if this was lower, I would have taken it, but it's not lower. So we have set our maximum. So what does this rule mean? It means whenever the division, which is a buying division, has an option of buying outside, then you take the lower of the net marginal revenue and the option of buying outside. You take that, the lower of the two sets the maximum level of that. So that's what I need to say. Whenever the buying division has an option, of buying externally. Just let me mute somebody. There is somebody calling another one, Sherry, there. So as an option of buying externally, then you know, we take the lower. We take the lower of the two. The lower of the two. Which two? The lower of the two. The lower of two, I mean, you take the lower of net marginal revenue and the TP, which is transfer price, as that. Unless there's anybody with a question, that's what you do. You take that. And if you want to, generally, as I said, it is approved that will be the case in terms of that, because at each point, if you were to test that, it will show you that the intention of this is to make sure that all of them make profit. So while the other one, its intention is to minimize the cost, the other one, is intention is to fight to get a profit on what it is selling. So even if you take and put it in a trial, you notice that will be also the case. It has options. So it gives a range. The range it gives is between 14. So you have the maximum will be between 14 and of course, as you may notice, the minimum will be between 8. So anything within that range is up for discussion. Anything out of that range is out of discussion. They can easily go for the outside option. So that's the case. So this would, of course, have that. If it charges, so it gives this option. Yes, you have that, but make sure you don't charge us above a certain amount, because if you charge us above a certain amount, then we find it not really profitable based on whatever we're having for that case. So unless there is anybody with a question, that is the rule. What I'm just doing is just to add on some decoration of how it can affect the statement, but that is the rule we have set for that. The rule is that, as for this case, we should know that, as we have said, in that context, it should be 14, and the lower of the other one, it should be on this side here. I think here is 8. That is the rule we have set here, but that is the figures for TP. And I've put in words here, whenever the buying division has an option of buying externally, then we take the lower of the two.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. I thought that the 4 was an additional cost, which was supposed to be added on the purchase cost.
This 4. The 4 is additional cost for the division called B. Because they buy the component here, modify it, or do whatever they do it, and sell outside. So when it's an additional cost, they need raw materials from here to add on whatever they are doing and then get it to the market. So it is an additional cost. You are correct about that, but additional cost to what? Maybe that is where we are differing on. This is an additional cost, but to what? Additional cost that will come, because as you remember, it is a cost that is, there is a transfer price that usually would come here, like in our case here, this is 8 here. We have like 14. 14 will be there, and then there is 4. So 4 is additional cost on that context. And then this is selling outside on 20, which should be that for that case. And of course, as you compare that, this will take only 8, this will take 4, that is 12. It sells outside at 20, so it will be something like that. So they share the profit. The idea of transfer price, as we said, his objective is to make sure they share the profit. And if any is sharing the loss, then it is about to bring conflicts in terms of whatever it is. So it is an additional cost, but additional cost in division B, added on whatever it brings in from here. So they can agree on at least 14. It will still give them that will set them a range that they will be able to deal with, because it will still give them profit if you take it at a maximum. It will give them profit at $2 for, and the other one will make 6. Overall, the company will make 12. You know, they have options. They can even change this they have several options. They can decide it is 14 they are using. If it is not 14, they can decide maybe we don't want 14. Next time they can decide let's use at least maybe another percentage in terms of whatever it is. So it's up to them. They can decide which one they can agree, but they have to work within the range. If they decide 13, of course, then it will still share the profit. That will be 5 and 8. They can decide, of course, another option, which they could decide. If it is 11, they can decide still good. If it is, all of them are still good for that, except that if they use 8, this one will make 0 and it may not be happy. This will take everything here. So it should be above. Should be above that. Should be above that. And that's why we are saying for this space, it should be above that. At least let's take 9 to be okay. They can still work with that. Let's take 10 and the rest. So unless there's any question, that's how it is. So we have set another rule, just not another rule specifically. We have actually taken the original rule and introduced in certain
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I'm asking if this question is requiring us to determine the transfer price, not the minimum or the maximum. You will take
of course,
any
these are
number.
the prices, by the way. These are the prices. These are the options we are giving. So it is giving you options. Whatever you negotiate on or decide on is within this range. Is within this. That's what we are offering, which is exactly what we are giving here. We are giving a range of those options we're talking about.
I'm asking if it is an exam requiring us to determine the transfer price, not the minimum or the maximum. How which number will it take between the 8 and the 14? Will it take any number between here?
Okay, there is if they have, what you're asking is if they have specified. If they have specified, then they should give you the model of what they are using. We said there are several methods you can come up with the transfer price. We said there is cost plus, so they must give you a percentage to qualify what they are trying to use. Cost plus means you take the cost, you factor in a percentage, you get a selling price. So if they say that you determine the transfer price, then they must give you the model of, because there are several methods we use to come up with transfer price. As we said last time, there is a market price. You may decide to use market price. There is a negotiated price. They may give you a negotiated because you're not part of the negotiation. That means it's just you're given a figure to work with. They may give you probably the other method is called cost plus, which could be either full cost or which could be either marginal cost. So it's up to, they have to specify what could be, because as you see, there are several options. There are several options, but as much as we have options, there is advantages and disadvantages. Like for cost plus, it is also not last time we checked, whenever the cost increases, also it goes on affecting the other division because you keep on charging. For example, if the cost keeps on increasing and you're charging 20%, you see, it can be dangerous. And that's why we are saying all the cost can lead sometimes to crisis. So you are setting the rules. So if they set an exam and they ask me, it depends with how it's required. Because question of transfer price comes asking you, determine what will be the minimum. Then they ask you, evaluate, is the transfer price being used? Is it suitable? Now, suitable means you check if they're making profit. If they are not sharing profit, then of course it's not suitable. Then they will tell you advice. Then you'll advise them on what options they could use. That is how the questions can come in. And another time they ask you, like in 2023, they asked students, I don't know, to calculate what would be the minimum price of course, the selling division. That is what they asked for that case. So the dynamic of the questions will always specify. If they ask me and it was like this, then of course I'll say there's a range and I can choose the suitable one. But either of them can still be good, because if you use maybe 12 will give you a share of 50-50. Maybe you could say 50-50 as you support your answer. So it all depends. But we'll go through the questions and see how they are, because they are in the past paper already. And you know, there is, if you go through all of them or a bunch of them, you know, a question doesn't come from far; it just comes from within. And if you check also the concept, will not, of course, be, you know, the questions are more likely repeated or kind of have a similar pattern they focus on based on the concept. Anyway, that is the rule, unless there is another question. If there isn't, I want to do part B of this, which is this one here. Now, part B, they changed, they just now, instead of 14, they said, assuming they can acquire this good externally at 18. Now, again, if they can acquire that at 18, what it will be? That is what they are asking in form of that. Right? So you can also come down here, and let me do just down here and see. So 18 it is. Instead of everything else is similar, here it is only where it is 18. Let's see again. We want to calculate, we want to find the boundaries or the you know, the ceiling, if I may call it, the ceiling and the flow of this, which you can work with and use that. So let's see that. Now, of course, for the division A, the minimum will still be that. The minimum will still be that, and above, you need to sell above that. But for this division, again, there is a comparison. So this rule still applies. This rule still applies. The comparison I'm talking about, this will still be the same. Nothing has changed, eh? By the way, this will still be the same. So nothing has changed there. So it basically means the net marginal, net revenue marginal, which is called net revenue marginal, is still 16. So compare with now the external option. The external option, as you have seen here, if I may just copy paste those words, as you have seen, is 18. So it is 18. So 18, if you compare, we need to pick, the rule here applies, we need to pick the lower. We need to pick the lower of the two. We need to pick the lower of the two. So if I paste here again, we pick the lower of the two. The lower of the two is of course 16. So in this case, we'll use 16 rather than 18, because it makes sense to go with 16. So therefore, it creates again our range. It is just that they wanted to, you apply now a different issue, but still the rule is the same, because now in this case, they would want to go with the 16. Remember, they are buying, so the intention is to try to minimize as much as they can, because there are buyers for that. So they go, of course, with one which is will be lower for that case. Could work maybe for both. So it gives a range again. The range, of course, will range between 8 and all the way to somewhere 16. And that will be the range which will be what they will have for that case. So these are the ranges that you may choose in, including all that which you may choose in. And since that's the range, if you apply here, you notice that is the one that will work. If you use 18, there is no way it would make sense for them, because at that point, if the cost of this is still, of course, 8, right. And then it has that, and then here we have, of course, the addition is still that. If you try any of these, if you try 9, of course, it still works for them. If you try 10, it still works for them. So, the sensitivity issue will tell you that all of them will work at each. Well, what? So here it is still at, if you use still even 13, it still be okay for that case. For that case, if you still use 13, all will work. Except when you start to hit 16, things start to be not good for division B, because division B will now be making 0 profit. And worse off, if you go to 18, then it will even be in negatives. The bridge will have been crossed. It will be in the losses zone. And that will create crisis for that division. And overall, it will compromise the goal congruency. So that's it. So the rule is that it will set that. You take the lower of the two. And unless there's any question, so we have set the rules. I'll just make a summary of the rules probably later on. But you know, as we have noticed now, or as we have gone through that, we have realized that it is, unless anybody has a question, if there isn't, we go to the last example and then check a past paper question that we have to deal with, that we intended to do last time and we did not do. Okay. If there is no question, that is also something maybe I needed to do for the part B of that case, and it gives us a range, and the range is that you need to work within those ranges, and that is where it is viable. Any price within here is just acceptable. If you take any, you will still be okay. And 12 seems to be doing 50-50 basis for each of them. Maybe they could find it ideal because the intention is to share. And if they love each other as brothers in the one company, maybe the intention is to share, they will settle for that as it is. Now, if there is no question, we go to the last example here, and then we go to the past paper. We have set the rules. The rules will be the one we're going to see also in the past paper that are going to be applied, as you may notice in the question we do whenever they ask that, will apply that. So that's the case. Okay, no question. So there is a last example here. It is a limited where there is a limited constraint. Huh?
I have a question.
Yes.
If we go back on example 7,
Yes.
in sub question B, why didn't we draw? Why didn't we draw conclusion like we did in sub question A? Like to say that from 8 to 14, it is where reasonable transfer price are. So why can't we draw why can't we draw a decision on sub-question B like we did in sub-question A?
We actually drew the same conclusion. We actually drew the conclusion based on the same factors. If you check properly, the only difference is one is giving an option of external. The external purchase, the external prices are not the same. Actually, that is the difference. But fundamentally, we followed the same channel. In fact, if you check, I almost copy-pasted everything. The only thing I didn't copy-paste or I had to alter was this one here. Because you check, this was 16, I copy-pasted, it remained the same as it is. Then this is the rule here, which I even copy-pasted. We said, whenever the buying division, if you check properly, if I put in a big screen, we said whenever, or if I zoom it, whenever the buying division, that's what we said, whenever the buying division has an option of buying externally, and I think that's what I'm emphasizing again, then we take the lower of semicolon net revenue marginal in the TP. So that's what we are doing again here. The lower now was to be the lower between this 16 and these. So of course, that's what I'm talking about. We are comparing between 16 and 18. And of course, being that I need to pick the minimum of the two or the lower of the two, it means it is 16. And that's how we apply that. So we apply the same, rule or the same basic principle that we applied there is the same. The only difference was that now this one had 18 in it as external buying price. And I've even shown an example here. If you use even 18 will be disaster to A. Yeah, you can stick to 14, but you see, at this time we're assuming 14 is not the option. 14 was done independently. So it's not like we are doing independent analysis at 14 and at 18. I think the intention here is to emphasize is lower. So they gave the lower here, which was applied here. Then they gave the upper, which to show still stick to the lower. And the lower happens to be, now in this case, it is 16.
Yes,
that is
yes. I get it. Thank you. And I want to know if always seller A always transfer their goods or services to be on minimum TP? Is it
On?
always a transfer? Its transfer price is always minimum. I don't know if
It's-
I'm asking. I
It
don't know
is
if
because you see, it makes logic. Logically, one division is selling, another one is buying. You know, it's very practical. Even if you go to the market, you
yes,
are a buyer. There is the
yes.
seller. The seller has set the minimum he can take from you.
Yes.
And you, as the buyer, you have set the maximum you can pay for that thing. So it
Yes.
kind of also works with the framework of what we go through the life. You know, you go to the market, you want to negotiate. The buyer, there is what he cannot take, because if he takes less than that, he's making losses. And you, as the seller, there is also what you have come, I can't buy this thing at above this maximum, because maybe it is my budget, or maybe you have issues, or you all the interests are there. But here the interest is more aligning to profit. So that's why benchmarking our issues on profit. So unless you are checking your issues on other factors, like budgets and blah blah, but in this case, profit is the main benchmarked issue we for each division.
Yes, yes. And I'm wondering to know when we are finding net marginal revenue. Why don't we use like, for example, in this question we've took 20 minus 4. And I thought that we could take 20 minus 10 and minus 4. Why didn't we consider that 10?
The 10 from where?
10 as a transfer price from age. And
No. We do. Before, you have to understand this, we are setting rules of negotiation. So the rules of negotiations are set independently before you meet. Transfer pricing is the meeting point of the two divisions. So, and it is what will be able to be negotiated. So before they meet, they do independent analysis. Before you go, just as I said, before you go to the market, you have your own plans. Then until you meet the person selling is when now the negotiations kind of hit the ground. So the 10, I don't know where you got the 10, first of all, or maybe you are saying the 8. We don't factor in the 8. We set the rules as independent. We set the rule for the division A. That's why you see I say A, and here B. So it means I'm strictly analyzing division A, and I'm strictly analyzing division B, giving them the basis of their negotiations. Before there is interference, or before there is that movement from here to here, it is independent negotiation. So it is negotiation which is strictly in independent factors, not involving the other one. Remember, transfer price comes in as later. So it is strictly a negotiation here, strictly a negotiation involving B before it goes to the table of negotiation. So it involves only B alone and A alone, independently.
Yes,
so
I got it.
We can't have interferences of other thoughts, because what we are discussing is that transfer pricing. So we can't have it as a basis of also part of the negotiation while we are still negotiating it. We want to set, first of all, the basis of our agreement or arrange will disagree or agree on.
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
And it seems like we have like more than 7 rules. And I have an idea if it is possible at the end of this session, you can give us like a summary. I don't know if it can be possible.
Actually, the rules are not 7. The rule is just like almost like one rule. But the idea is that it is incorporating dynamics, if I may call it that. It's actually one rule if you check. It is just like, but the problem is it faces kind of different options. When options are introduced, then it is modified a bit. The options, so it's actually one set, one rule actually. But because if you check, this is the rule we started with from here. I don't know where the rule started, but it's the rule which started here. Oh, I did not do this, but I deleted or something. But it is just the same rule. Yes. It is just the same rule, but it is not 7 actually. If it is any rules, they could be one rule, but with options. So you say that the marginal cost is usually regarded as the minimum, and the maximum is regarded as the net marginal revenue. Then if there is options, that is the condition now, because those options are conditional. If there is option that this division, which is buyer, has limited capacity and it has an option of selling outside, then the rule is that it is this and that. So I'll try to summarize. As I said, I'll write the rule probably later on. But the rule is one with the options of which modify it a bit. Because if you check here, it is still the same thing. Minimum is still this, and maximum is still, but because of competition, then it can either be, that or this. But if there was no competition, it is still, this figure is part of negotiation. So it is only that this figure meets other factors where it is now competing, and there it is sets another condition of factoring in the rule.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll write anyway a summary. Anyway, let's go to this. So there is the last part of this, as I said, is this one here. Before I go and do the question, this is a scenario where we have A is capable of making 2 products, X and Y. A can sell both products externally as follows. So A can sell both products externally as follows. There is external selling price of $80 and $100 for X and Y respectively. Variable cost is 60 and 70 respectively. Contribution, I think if you run down, you get the difference is equal to that. A has limited labor available. The labor hours required for each product are X is 5 hours, Y is 10 hours per unit. A has unlimited external demand for both products, meaning they can sell as much as they want. Division B requires product Y from division A. Calculate the minimum transfer price that should be charged by A for supply of product Y, to division B. So if you structure this, basically it means we have a division which is called A, and that division, of course, it's a division that is the supplying division. So if you come and put this in proper perspective, then it is this way. We have this, maybe for purpose of just cross-checking that, and then of course we have, of course, this one here. So, but remember, they are saying it has an option of selling outside. So it can, just a minute, it can easily sell across to its within the organization, but they are saying it can also sell outside whatever it is dealing with. So it can sell externally as a basis of whatever it is having there. So in that process, we have that. So then there are some things that have also told us it has labor which is limited. This is if you check, this will be our division A, and this will be our division B. So that's what we have. So the idea here is, now that we have something like that, we need to understand what it is from that. So it has X and it has Y. Yep. Let me type this side. It has Y. So here they say it can also, it can give, or it has a demand which is coming from within its organization. What field is requesting to record is locally? Just a little bit. Okay, then there is that. So this is the case here. So we have here Y. We have here Y. If I put Y there, Y can also be sold or be transferred to B. It can be transferred to B from that case. So then, in that context, let's put in some other data that we notice that are there and see what it is. And this is external market as it is offered externally. So we have that. And then this is division B. I think we have interpreted that, so that's the case. So let's do an analysis and see what we can get from this. Remember, division B has limited capacity of labor. If you check properly, they are saying it has limited capacity of labor here. They say the labor, if I check properly here, they have said it has a limited capacity. The labor required for each are this and that, but it has limited labor are available. A has limited labor, meaning the labor is not that much enough. So that means labor is a constraint. Labor is a constraint, and with that, they have to make a very good decision that will work under that constraint, because they have a problem of labor being an issue there. So here we have X, we have Y. Let's develop a report. Now, generally, we'll use the same technique we use when you are doing key limiting factors, because they have...
Sorry,
Yes?
sir.
Yes.
I think it's not division B.
Is it division B or division A?
It's S.
Who has limited capacity?
You're correct. So there is this means this one is a constraint. It's a constraint. So we have, it is limited, or you can call it constraint. Okay, I think that's the correct spelling. Constraint. So it is A, not B. I think I put the both. It is A. You're correct. Thank you. So this division has that. So what we need to do, we use the same logic as key limiting factor, because where there is problem of resources, then you need to find the best performer. And the best performer can only be analyzed using profit parameters. And the profit parameter here is contribution. And we may notice there is contribution per unit here. So pick that contribution per unit, which is 20. And so we want to assess the performance of each unit of each product vis-a-vis the labor constraint, and see how it is. So we want to see, and performance here will mean we go with the contribution as the basis of that. So in this case, we have that. So this will be, just a minute, I admit somebody. This is what we'll get for that. So being that we are trying to, assess how the performance is based on the constraint we have. So the best thing now to do is to, of course, get the constraint here to use it. So we have hours per unit. We have hours per unit, PU. I could put S here, hours per unit. So hours per unit is that this is 5, this is 10. So you need to divide and find how they are performing per hour, such that if you take this 20 here, you divide by 5. I think the problem is that it has dollars inside. So probably I just need to put 20 physically like that. And this is 30. So it will give you that, which will give you the relationship of $1 per hour, how the dollar is performing, or the profit code contribution, which is the change of per unit, or change per that performing for each. So if you divide, you find this is 4. If you take this, you divide by that, you find it is giving you $3 for every hour. So this is the best performer, and that's what it is, because it will assist division A, to plan, because it is facing a problem. And when you're facing a problem, it is better to know which is the best performer. Even at office, when there is a problem of constraint of time, you, as I've always said, you don't give learners the job. You give people who have the experience to perform that. Learners can do something that will take several periods or several things that is not in a hurry, but that's the case. So if you are to rank, of course, this will mean that this is number one here, and the other one is number two. And that means the priority of ranking will be how you'll also decide your factors from this case. So I hope you get that. So that means we can easily know how to deal with what we have from this case. And that is what we have. We want to now can use to set, of course, our rule and understand what it will be when there is such an issue, which will assist us also to understand how to deal with that last sitting question for that. So we need to set again, we need to set the minimum for division, of course, A in that context, which is the selling division. So we'll have all that. We need to set that. And again, we need to set for division B what will be the maximum and the rest of those that we'll have for that. Of course, in this case, what will be the minimum in terms of what we have here? Now, in terms of what you have, of course, the same basis apply. The marginal cost is always the benchmark or of anything to start with. Plus, of course, as you may notice, they are supposed to, as you may notice in this context, we are dealing with the Y, because Y is the one that will be supplied here. So it means for us to fulfill, this is another issue that you may factor in, for us to fulfill the internal demand of division B, we have to understand that it will force us not to forego some things of this division. And that is what I need to tell you. I think you get the point, Because as you notice, to produce Y, you need to forego some part of maybe this, or because the labor is limited. So since labor is limited, it means for you to serve the demand of B, then you must also know you will forego something. So it has opportunity cost. So here there is opportunity. We have an opportunity cost who are gone to produce X, because X seems to be favored by the rationale of arranging that. So there is that. So what will it be? It will be the marginal cost, which is here, $70. $70 plus, as you may check, that is also something we need to factor in, plus that foregone hours that they need to forego. And that's what we need to factor in. The 10 hours, which they need to use, and plus the profit that they'll lose, which is $4, which will give you 110. Let me say this again. It is marginal cost. I could put down here the minimum to explain the minimum, because I want to put it in a clear detail, because after that we'll do the question which has that. So you pick the marginal cost, which is equals to $70, plus the opportunity that is foregone, which I'm saying again here, or a contribution lost. Let's put it in the figure that where we get it. Is contribution lost. Now, what is the contribution that they will lose? They will lose, of course, as you may notice, they will lose this $4 because it will mean they'll have to not produce some part of probably X for them to service the the demand which is being requested by B. So plus the figure which is here. So the figure that is here is contribution that is coming from X multiplied by the hours that these will have to be used to make that unit, which is equals to that. And that gives you that. So when you sum up that, that gives you the minimum. So the minimum is 110. I hope you get the point. The minimum will be 110, which is the same logic that the similar question has in August. So the minimum will be 110, which is what we need to notice from that. So if there's no question, we can go to now explaining what will be also the other factors that will come through from that. So that is the minimum. Question?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm wondering, maybe if I'm lost, I don't know, you can give me some light. I'm wondering why are we calculating the division y instead of x?
Why are we calculating division y instead of x?
Y instead of x.
Yes. Okay. This is the case here. First of all, let's go down here. Here, what does this mean? It means x. X is preferred. X is preferred, or X will use the hours. X is preferred in production priorities, will be given the first priority. Let's first of all understand that. X is preferred here because X is number one. It gives better profit per hour, and therefore it is ranked as number one. Is it true? So they are fighting over resources. So there is competition. There is competition for the labor hours. There's competition. That's why they say it's limited. There's competition for the labor hours. The labor hours in that case, there's competition for the labor hours, and X is given the first priority. X is given the first priority. It's given the first priority, and we have proved it. Now, since X is given the first priority, it implies that Y may not be produced because the hours may be over. That's why they're saying it's a constraint. This implies that Y may not be produced. Y has a possibility or may face a chance of not being produced, assuming the hours are very little. Maybe Y absorbs it. You know, unfortunately, in this question, they have not given us the demand. Assuming that people come and demand X a lot, and the X is also prioritized based on performances, it means you will produce only X. Because there's an option of simply producing X and you'll still be okay. Because the limitation, we are told there is a limited hours here. Therefore, limited hours means you can either produce this or that, or both if the hours allows you to do. So in that context, we have analyzed and realized X is preferred because you give you $4 for every hour, and the hour is the problem here. For every hour, it will give you $4, which is better than $3. So from that position, it means there's a possibility of also, it implies, there's what I was writing here, it implies there's a possibility of producing X alone, or there is a possibility of producing X and Y. There is no possibility of producing Y alone. Is it true or not true?
Question.
Yes.
We have given labor hours per unit, which is unlimited labor hours, but we don't give a unit to produce. So how do you know that labor hours is limited to?
And exactly the same thing I was saying. I have said, they say labor is limited. And since labor is limited, we have not been given, it's not always a mandatory to be given that, because the question wasn't about, they don't want to even to prepare a statement of final or a report. What they want you to choose is to know which one will be selected. And this is what I'm explaining. It is true. There is no, there is no need of even giving it. According to what they want is the minimum transfer price. And still it can be calculated without what you are asking. But generally they usually would give, by default, but it's not mandatory unless they give you and ask you also calculate the optimal profit after you do production plan, and then you calculate the optimal profit for that case. But in this case, they don't want even you calculate the profit later on. What they want is determine just the price, and price is per unit. So it's not necessary that information for that case. But what we know here, they have said is limited. Sometimes they give you a question for you to find out which is limited. But in this case, or
that
they
is
find
question, sir.
What?
That is the question. We have given labor hours available per unit, but we didn't given the total hours available to rank the X as the first priority.
But you see, you can even get the answer. That's what I'm saying. The answer of this question can be obtained without that information. We don't need to prepare. We don't need to calculate that shortage. They have already said is labor, which is a shortage. So we don't need to calculate it. And even they have given you how it is performing. All they want you is to know how you will plan. So that information is kind of not really necessary here. Maybe necessary some other context where they may ask what is that shortage, and maybe ask, okay, continue further, plan for how to do with it, and then come out of it, prepare now a performance report where we say this after planning, this is what to give. But they don't want to escalate to that level. They just want you to do minimum price, and that's it. So again, that one is not necessary. Here is what I was explaining. There's competition for labor hours, and X is given the first priority. What does this mean? It means you can produce X alone or X and Y. And Y is conditional. Y is conditional if hours remain. Is it true? If the hours remain, then you can produce Y. It's not a must. You have to understand that. So it means there's options here. X can be produced alone if the hours are only covering X. And there's an option, X can be produced and Y. But this is conditional if hours remain, because it will take the remaining. It's like you are taking something. If it remains, then the other person will eat it. So it's conditional. How about if you have a big stomach and you finish it? It was yours. So it is up to that. So that's the case here. X can be produced. X can be produced alone. Let me put a proper English here. Can be produced alone. There is a possibility that way, especially if hours are not enough. And that's why we are picking $4 for that. So we are taking that on the condition that we have this is produced on optional basis. This one is mandatory. This one is produced on optional basis. Is it true? Because we have said Y can be produced only if, this one is, in fact, you should put that, only if hours remain. But if hours don't remain, we can't complain. And that's why we are saying, who will lose here? It is X who will lose if we produce Y. And therefore, that's why we are taking the rate here and multiplying it. Remember, the rate there is $10. Sorry, it is $10 per hour. The rate there is $10 per hour. So multiply by, because we want to convert this into money, because that is the contribution is going to be lost to cover this, or the request for that. Multiply by $4, what they will lose, because for them to produce Y, they'll have to lose. They have to lose some amount of profit, and that profit is $4 per unit. So we multiply with that, and of course, you know what will happen. The figure you'll get there is, of course, what we are trying to get here, which will give us what we want to multiply and get as $40. That's what we'll do. So this one is to show that for that part to be produced, you need 10 hours. Of course, they don't use 5 hours. You need 10 hours for it to be produced. But as you're producing this, you are losing some money that X could have given you. And that is what it means. So here, X loses. X X is mandatory. X is a must. But Y is optional. And producing Y will mean losing some revenue you could have, because you could have, they say the market is unlimited. Remember, it is unlimited. So you are losing. So producing Y means you are losing. You are losing. There is a loss. Let me put producing Y means there is a loss, a lost contribution that could be obtained from. And when you lose profit, it turns to cost. You are losing contribution per unit, or losing contribution from not producing. My English disappeared. From not producing X. So you are losing that. But if you produce Y, if you produce X alone, you are losing nothing from Y. But when you produce Y, you are losing something you could have gotten from this, because it has unlimited capacity where they could sell it, and that is the case. So or it has possibility of that. So the minimum price is between the contribution lost, and that is contribution lost for not producing X, for not producing X. And of course, that is the case. While producing what? While producing Y. While producing Y. So producing Y will cost you $10, but because that $10 will be equivalent to $4 you are losing for producing it. And that becomes the minimum transfer price, which is equal to that. And I think I have answered that, unless otherwise.
Question, sir.
Yes.
May I think for this opportunity cost?
Yes.
Why not multiplying this 4 hours per unit? Because me, I'm thinking what I have lost is this $4 per hour.
Yes.
Times the 5 hours that I should have been gained if I produced the Y.
If you produced?
I'm saying.
If you produce what?
If you produce Y, I'm saying.
Oh, by the way,
not
this one is supposed to be per hour. This is per hour. I put on the opposite. This is per hour. This one is the one which is per unit. Is it? 10 is per unit. 10 is 10 hours. I put wrong information. This is hours. Hours. This is hours per unit. I put vice versa. So it's 10 hours per unit, and then this one is 4. So hours and hours will cancel. So it's supposed to give you $40 per unit. Okay, continue.
I'm saying. For me, what I have lost by producing this product Y is the contribution that X is giving per hour times the hour that I should have used it to produce that product X, which is 5.
5. Okay. 5 multiplied by what?
By 4. Because if
5, let's see. First of all, 5 is hours. 5 is hours. 5 is hours used to produce X. Is it true?
X,
Yes. So you are not going to produce X. So why are you using 5? Because 5 is input. You put in 5, you get X. So why are you using
Yes.
5? And here we are saying we want to produce y to instead of x. So why are you using input? This is an input of x. You put in 5, you get x. Is it true?
Yeah. Yes.
So we are here. You will reduce. You have an option of producing y, but before you produce y, you need to, share the resource because the resource is limited. So there is some resource you'll push out of here, but those resources should be enough to cover a unit of y. And the unit of y requires 10. A unit of y requires input. Input of y is 10 hours. To make y, you have to have 10 hours for it to work. So the question is, why are you taking 5? Because here we are saying, if you check here, the logic is 10, this 10 here. The 10 represents, because you are saying we are going to produce y as an option. And because you are producing y as an option, and we are faced with the competition on the materials, it means there is an opportunity or foregone opportunity cost, because those hours could have been used on X, but because those hours are going to produce Y instead, then Y will use 10 hours, and that's why we multiply 10 hours. And who is losing? We multiply by the one who is losing. Who is losing is X, sorry. And X, if you translate to what is the equivalent of X losing, is $4, which is this one here, for every hour that is being used, which makes logic. Yes, because if you use 5 will not make logic. We are not producing X. In fact, we are taking that 5 to what? To Y. But Y requires 10. So it means who is requiring 10 is Y. So we say to produce Y, we need to use 10. And since these hours are a problem, it will mean we are foregoing what was better for us, which was X. Therefore, these hours could have given us $4 if we could have produced X. So
Sorry, sir.
10.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
I'm saying for this contribution per hour, this is $4 per hour. It is a contribution.
Yes.
Yes, I'm saying if I am not to produce this product Y,
yes,
and take this contribution I'm getting by producing this product X, and times 5 hours, the contribution I'm getting from producing this product Y by using this 5 hours per unit. I think is the one that I'm going to forgo if I produce this product Y.
So you're multiplying what by what?
The contribution. This is 4 contribution per hour.
4 multiply by
$4. This is $4.
Yes. Tell me, multiply by
the 5 hour per unit.
Yes.
I get the total contribution.
Which is you are going back here. Because that's where we divided. We got that from that. Because it means you are going back here. This multiply by this. You are going back to contribution per unit. Then why don't you just take 20? Yeah. Because you are going back. When you say 4 multiply by 20, it multiplied by 5, it is you are going back on top, which is this 20 here. Remember, this was calculated, this 4. This 4 is calculated by 20 divided by 5. Sorry, is calculated by 20 divided by 5. So it's like you are going back with where we started the original figure. Then why don't you just take 20 instead?
I'm trying to get the contribution.
Okay, continue. So you take 20. Let's continue. You take 20. Continue.
No, not 24.
You say 4 multiply by?
Yes. Multiply by 5.
Yes, which gives you 20.
Which give me 20.
Okay, continue.
this is the contribution I'm going to get by producing this product X.
Okay, which is given
And
even. It's already there.
yes, and
Mhm.
if I'm not producing this product X and I produce product Y, I think the contribution I'm going to forgo is that one.
Is that one. Okay, that is the
The
contribution you are
point I'm
foregoing.
trying to make out.
Okay, you are saying you will go forego this contribution, which is correct, which is not a problem. You will forego this, but this one is per unit. This is per unit, of course, as you put it that way. Now, the idea is this. You know, the idea I think you are trying to fight is removing the 10. I think the idea maybe you are kind of forgetting is that here, the problem is on hours. So the idea, if you are foregoing 20, 20 is per unit. 20 is per unit, which is not a problem. 20 is per unit, which somebody could say you are foregoing. But you are foregoing how many hours? You are not foregoing 5. You are foregoing because you are foregoing to produce Y. Y requires 10. So what you are foregoing is 10 hours, not 5. As I said, you are foregoing 10 hours to make sure you produce 1 unit, because if you forego 5, you will produce a half. You will produce a half because you want to produce X. You want to produce Y. Y requires 10 hours. So for you to forego completely, you need to forego 10. I don't know if you got the point. So foregoing 5 will give you, so generally it means you will multiply whatever you get here by 2. Because at the same time, we know that for you to produce X, you need 2 hours. You need 10 hours. So that is the case. So you're not foregoing 20. You are foregoing enough hours that will be there to produce Y. And to produce Y, you have to forego 10 hours. And that's why we are multiplying with the 10. I think what the point is, you are foregoing with the
I got it.
Okay, let's move on. If there's no question, we can move again to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Somebody was saying multiply by 2 because you need to forego hours that are enough to produce Y. Remember, the price we need here is for Y, to be charged on Y. Yeah? So don't take 5. Yes, it is true that direction you are going is correct, but the problem is those hours are not enough to give a unit of Y. They are only enough to give a half of a unit of Y, and that will not have solved the problem of Y. You will come here and it will not give you a price per unit properly. Anyway, I think that is done. Let's go and check a past paper before we because I need to kind of try to finish this actually today. I don't want to go through this in the next session. So there is a past paper which somebody was, we were trying to target to do last time. I think one of the students kind of suggested that let's go through that and then we go through July and see. Now that question has a similar characters. So if you are to solve that, then you need to understand that whatever we have been doing is the same logic that I need to apply. So I'm going to apply that logic and you see what it will give us for that. So just a minute, let me check the question as we can take maybe just some few minutes. I open where I saved, I think I kind of don't know where I put it, but I can get it. Just let me see. Let me download it because I don't remember where I saved it, that past paper. But I think I can download it. Just let me download it and then I get it back because I think I don't remember where I saved it. You know, sometimes when you come from other things, you're busy doing other things. You find you don't remember where you saved the papers. But let me click here. I think it's here. So in 2023, there was a similar question. I think there is others also in the listings down there. We'll check immediately. Let's hope it will take some few minutes to clear that. Now that you have understood the rules, let's go to this. There's a paper here. Let's check here. It is a kind of last sitting where there was that issue. So you need to apply that logic. So it is here. This is the question. This is the question here. It carried 10 marks. Assuming the two subsidiaries consider explain the goal congruency through negotiation of examining ideal that this you need to explain the goal congruence. We already explained. I shared with you the slide and all those cases. So just as here, you now know what goal congruency is. Assuming, because they're saying assuming Simlex Limited had two subsidiary and considering a CFO explanation regarding congruency through negotiations. Explain the ideal approach that would be able to provide goal congruence opportunity to all centers. I'll share again, there is a how to, to overcome conflicts. I think I have a slide here, which I'll share later on. But for that, let's focus first of all on the calculation. But this one can be done, after you understand goal congruency. There are methods you can come through that. Of course, setting the rules. We have seen those rules we have been setting are rules to just make sure goal congruency is upheld, and they are the ones which are embracing what we call goal congruency. So if you talk with that in that line and all those cases, and there are others methods which are called dual transfer pricing and stuff like that, you could also be able to get the marks. But anyway, the required is what is required is what is kind of touching the calculation aspect of this, which you could deal with. Determine what should be the transfer price for each product unit if the labor hours are limited to 6,000 hours at Simlex. Is this Cimex, sorry. Cimex, at Cimex. Simplex is usually in my head, Cimex. So for that case. So Cimex Limited is a company located, and this is what it is a company located in Kigali with a subsidiary in Southern Province. Simaco, Simaco uses some of the raw materials from Cimex. Cimex produces 3 products, Uni, Una, and Uno, and all of them have external markets. The CEO was concerned that the company should not be selling externally when it is its subsidiary which uses its products as raw materials and has not been considered. The CFO explained that to sell to a subsidiary, an ideal transfer price must be established, which enables the transferring division to earn return from its efforts, and receiving division to incur cost from the benefits received at a fair commercially priced. Most importantly, the organization aims as a whole is mainly to maximize company profits and has to always be maintained, and where need be, division manager may have to negotiate and agree on the amount of goods and services to be transferred. Other additional information about the 3 products is as follows. There is particulars, and we have under Uni, there is under Una and Uno. We have external market price per unit is 35,000 for Uni, and 32,000 for Una, and 30,000 for UNO. Variable cost of production in CEMEX Limited is 22,000, 14,000, 16,000, and respectively. Labor hours required per unit. Labor hours required per unit in CEMEX, is 4, 5, 3, respectively for each, product as it is there. Maximum external sales in units. Maximum external sales in units is 800, 500, and 300. SIMACO requires CEMEX to transfer 400 units of UNA. Besides, CEMEX could buy similar units of UNA from an external market at a franc of 31,000. Determine what should be the transfer price for each product unit if the total labor hours are limited to 6,000 hours at CEMEX. So generally, that's the question, and you're required to answer that as you suggest to do that. So it falls under this category. It has just the same issues as we're talking about, which you are relating to it. I think I had copy-pasted it somewhere here, or I didn't. Maybe let me check. I thought I copy-pasted somewhere here. I'll check. So anyway, that is the question. If we have it, that is the question that we need to go through, unless there is anybody with a question on these issues here. If there isn't, then that is the issue there. The hours are limited, so you need to find out how to deal with that case. And that's what I need to go through and be able to solve that scenario. So that's what to go through. As per that question, I need to go through that and be able to see what it is. So let me try to paste on the Excel just a few minutes, and then I see, because I don't see where I saved it, but I can check if I had done it. Maybe I didn't. So that is the question. I think if you have the past paper, you can check it out. As I try to get also where I can have it being seen, or where I could paste it and maybe use it for that case. I didn't save it. I thought I saved it here. No, it's not this. So if you have the past paper, we can go through that and see. Now, one thing is this one here. We need to solve out the issue that they are facing here, which is that they have an issue of limitation in resources. Let me close some Excels here. They're confusing me a bit. I think I'm gonna just save these here, and then I move on, because I want to deal with that, and then I focus on something else. So I didn't paste it, so I need to paste it probably here, because I don't see where I pasted it. I thought I had pasted it somewhere, but I can't see where I saved it. Maybe I pasted it in a different area. Summaries, I think it's here. It's August. Oh, I got it. So I got it. I think I was trying to check where I'd saved it. So I got it. I think we can continue. It's August 2023. The suggestion that I probably should attempt that. So I want to say how it can be done, and then see how to deal with it, and find what is the transfer price that they should be able to set. So I have it. I think in that context, I could just maybe let me share with on the Excel. I have an Excel which I saved it. I think I've seen where I saved it, and then maybe we can go through that and see as it is. So it's certain marks question. So I've got the Excel that I had saved in. It's here. So this is it. I saved here. I was wondering why I saved it. So this is the question. And paste it here. So it has 10 marks that require to be solved for this case. So what we know here is the case. We can start to solve it. As you may notice, we have a structure that's showing that this is what it is. So we need to find what will be the minimum between that. So we have the subsidiary, which they of course they can do that. So they have an option of doing a transfer price, or they can deal with transfer price, because I was told they have also external, because if you read, they can also sell externally. So it means it's possible for them also to have an external option, which could be that case. So they have an option which is external. So if they can sell it also external, there's no problem. So we have a company which they're saying they could easily engage in transfer pricing, because we have CEMEX, which is there, limited. And then we have, if you just try to visualize that, we have, of course, these are the one which is called Simaco, something like that. So that's what we have. So first thing first, let's understand what is the limitation that we have here. Now, this has demand, as you may notice, so it's possible for us to factor that into total or lump sum figures as compared to the previous one, which is there. So we could have, as you may notice, we have uni. So the first thing I want to find out is the first step. First step is I need to determine the shortage. I need to determine what is that really shortage that they're talking about. Determine the shortage or the limiting factor. What is that limiting factor? So that's what I need to go through and get what it is. So I need to determine that. So if we check, we have to go through that and see. Now to check that, if you go through that, we have uni, we have uni, we have una, we have uno. So just to go through that, I think we could easily fix this quickly so that we can move ahead. So the case here, these are the products. These are the products they have, which is that. Now, we know there is a rate of how they use the hours, because hours has been sensitized to be the issue. We need just to factor how much by that context. So in this case, this uses 4, this uses 5, this uses 3. So that is the rate here. They have a demand, which we can easily use to quantify the facts of that hours it is. So here, this is 800. As you may notice, we have these are the maximum demands they can serve for that. So we have that. So it basically means, as for that case, as you may check, they have, of course, it means we can easily get how much it is from that. So you have that. I think we have that. So we get this multiplied by what you have there, which gives you that. And that is the hours in total for that. So we have the hours. So if you run down, this gives you at least 6,000 hours. So we have the total hours being obtained down here. Now, based on what we're being told here, if you check in this question here, they have clearly indicated that, as you may notice, did they give us the limitation? Anyway, that is the hours that they require. And as you may check here, that is the hours that they may require to have to work with that. So the hours they have is that. The hours they have is that. So the intention is, if that is the hours they could, the maximum they require, not they have, sorry. The maximum they require is that. The maximum they require is that. Now, the question is, how do we now plan on this basis? Because they have said, as you may notice here, they have said that it has, of course, issue to deal with the, with the limitation in that hours. They have said the hours are limited to 6,000. I was actually checking for this. It had snapped my head. I was wondering where it is, but I got it. So they have this available. That's what I was trying to check. So I was running through, wondering where it is. So they have 6,000 hours. I got it. So therefore, if you were to do your analysis, you notice they are in deficit of 600 hours. So there is a shortage. There is a shortage. So there is a shortage or a shortfall of 6 hours, 6,000 hours. Sorry. There's a shortfall or shortage or whatever you may call it. There is that issue which they are facing for that case. So that, of course, makes them know they should. It is a planning, factor that they need to factor in, that they have a shortage, and it assists them to plan on how to deal or produce. So this can assist us to now understand that it is a shortage. Second step, now, whenever there is a problem, even in a company, you settle down and decide now, who do we give the job? That is how it works. Okay? Even you may call, even if it's required to call somebody from retirement, if it needs that, then even the soldiers are usually called from retirement to come and serve. So that's the case. Whoever can perform better here will, of course, be the one given the priority. But remember, as they are given the priority, there is also, they need to factor in, there's a transfer price issue, and that will be the case where you need to find out if there will be. As we know, the transfer price in this case, they want what they will charge. So the intentionally here, the examiner is simply asking you what will be the minimum. What will be the minimum charged by what? CEMEX. So you have to know that's what I'm working towards. And the minimum, generally, anybody knows starts with what? Marginal and blah, blah, which comes through subject to such issues. So it's marginal plus issues which exist on optional basis. So that's the case. So just don't think I'm working towards nothing. We are working towards a target. I already know what the target I need to narrow down to. So I'm working towards something. So as you see me going down, there is that structure that I need to focus on and try to build up on it. So the intention will be to get the minimum transfer price, which will be, of course, charged by, as they said, CEMEX, and that one will be what I'm targeting, which you start with marginal and then plus others following through, which you have seen previously from the example we had. So in that context, we can move on and see. So after that, we have, that is a shortfall. So come here and then do the performance assessment, and you see which one is performing better. I could call it performance assessment, if I may call it that name, performance assessment of each product. Performance assessment of each product. I need to do that performance assessment of each product. What am I talking about? If we check, we have these products here. If I do that, then we have the products there. I think we have that. So we have these products here. They have a selling price. The selling price is, of course, that, which, of course, we can just get it there. We have those selling prices which are there, and you can easily get that. Right? So anyway, that's what we have. Those are the selling prices. Just a minute. I think I did something wrong. So the selling prices are there. So we have already them. Instead of doing that, let me just lift it from here. And if it changes, they can easily adjust. So we have those sort of selling price, and that is what it is. So if you check, that is the selling price for this. Then there is a variable cost. Variable cost, because we want to analyze how this resource will be allocated before we think of any transfer price charges. So the variable costs are these ones, which is there. You need to deduct them across each factor here. So you will minus them across those figures that we move there. So if you do your analysis, you get that as 13. And if you do your analysis, that as that. And that is the contribution. So if that is a contribution, I could call it CM to avoid any necessary typing for that case. So therefore, I need now to assess how it is performing per key limiting factor, which will be my third element for this case. That aspect I need to do. So if I come here, I need to take that, which I'll take, of course, the contribution that I have, which is CM, I divide by that limiting element, divide by limiting component. So that's what I need to target for that case, divide by a limiting component. So if you come here, you get, this is 13. Now, the rate of how it is operating, as you may notice, it takes 4 hours. It takes 4 hours if it is the case there. then this takes 5 hours, and then this takes, of course, it's per unit. This is per unit as it is analyzed for that. So also this is per unit. So if you divide, you find that if you take this, you find you're dividing that, you're converting it to see how it is performing per hour. That is the idea, to divide to see how it's performing per hour. Also this, to divide to see how it's performing per hour, which is dividing by that. So you get to give you this Rwandan francs per hour, and this will give you this Rwandan francs, of course, per hour after dividing that. And if you are to rank, of course, you know, we need to rank. And if you are to rank, you get which one is the best in terms of that. So if you rank that, of course, it shows you that there is one which is better, is it? So if you rank that, then of course you will have what it is. So we have that. I think if you rank that in reference to that, you get this would be number 1 for that case. So it's performing better, I think, based on those cases. Or just put that. I think which one is better? This one, is it? This is better. This is following this, and this is the third one per hour, because that's how they perform in terms of that. Eh? If I just do manually how it is, it's supposed to be this is giving better because it's 4,007 and 66 something. This is second in line. This is the third one. So that, of course, gives us the priority of how they produce them, and that is the case here. Now, remember, don't forget, as you go through that, they have said this is the products that they have produced. The CEO is concerned that the company should not be selling externally when its subsidiary uses its products as raw materials. And that's why they want to know how to set that. And the CFO explained that to sell to a subsidiary company, and a daily transfer price must be established, which is what we want to establish in this effort that we are going through that. So, and because of the shortage, we need to know how to come up with that. Eh? Now, they are saying here, what does it require? What does it, or what does this SIMACO require? SIMACO requires this one here to be transferred. It is not requesting for all, it is requesting for only that, which is UNA. Now, UNA happens to be ranked the second. When you check UNA has been ranked the second in that values in the process that we are dealing with here. It has been ranked second, is it? So if UNA has been ranked second, then we need to know how to deal with it from that case. So we have to know if the resources will be enough for it to be able to be covered in terms of what it is. Remember, they also have an external market. So they have an external market, and when they have an external market, then of course means there is competition for that product called UNA. And when there is competition, then the minimum will not be only marginal, will also be plus opportunity cost. Opportunity cost that will be in real, or that is existing between them, because there is competition for that product. It's not only required by within internal structures, it's also required outside. So after that, we can now decide, let's do the allocation of how it will be produced and see if the hours remain. If they don't remain, of course, that is the case relating to that, and see how much you can easily get from that case. So to deal with that, I think you got the point, and that's what we need to find out for that. Eh? So this will be, this of course will be given the first priority. We'll start by producing UNO as a product in that line. Let me put the headers. So the header is dealing with the products. I think I copied the products there. And there is a rate, of course, there, which is there here. And of course, I need to check the hours, how they're running. So the hours, of course, will be that. And then, of course, I factor in the demand, which they need to meet, which will, of course, subsequently give the consumption of resource that will be hours. So if you check UNO as that, and it is given the first priority, it's rate of how it is supposed to be produced. It will go through 3 hours, as it is the first one. Now, 3 hours, it needs to meet a demand of 300. And therefore, if you were to multiply, because there is how it is supposed to be in form of where the number of hours, because we have that. So if you were to multiply it, then it will give you what it is. Eh? So they'll have used that. And this means they will have used that number of hours. But remember, the available hours are not that much. So you have to check, is it possible to produce until they serve all that? Of course, it will not be possible because they have also external, but I'm just doing it for the sake. So of course they have 600 hours. So by assigning UNO all hours, then of course UNO is being of course being produced, and it is using hours. So of course there is 900 hours that have gone. And if you check that, you remain with 5.1. And that is what you may call balance 1 as we go down. Next is, of course, you have to produce. Now, next in line is UNA. And remember, this UNA here, as you may notice, they are saying that this is what it is. Simplex could buy similar units from units of UNA from an external market. Also, there is a competition of that. So it has an option also. Cimex could buy a similar units, of UNO from external market at that. So we have to know, because SIMACO requires Cimex to transfer that. Besides, Cimex could buy units of UNA from external market at that. So you have to consider that will also be factoring to get what will be the minimum price. Anyway, if you check this, of course, as you produce it, you will use this amount here, and this will be what we need to find out for that case. So UNA happens to be the second in line, and based on what we have, if all is calculated well, then I think this one here is supposed to pick 5, which will be that. Now 5, of course, we consider that it is, of course, going to produce all that. This one here, and this one is what is required as per the demand, which is, we will take it as what they could sell externally, and you have that. And if you multiply this by that, you find
Sorry, sir.
number of hours. Yes?
UNA is 500, not 800.
5.
The demand for UNA.
Oh, you're correct. You're correct is about that. So that is what to be for that. Thank you. So apart from that, that's what we have for that case. So next is to try to see. You may notice that the number of hours that we have been, of course, been reducing every time we produce, because we are assigning that, and we are trying to see what will be the basis of us having an opportunity to look into it and see. So the hours will not be enough, because that is what it is. Now, UNA will, of course, consume another hours, which is 25. Then UNI will also require that number of hours. And of course, there is a deficit. As we may notice that is what I need to, of course, factor in, and then we will be done with it and see what will be the minimum price that they can take, which is, of course, what we'll do, and see how to come up with that. So we can continue. So it takes that, and meaning that here it is 25 that is being reduced, 2,500. So therefore they remain with simply 2,600 hours, which is the balance number 2. So that is what we have. Now, as you go down, this is computed as a movement to check if the balances are enough. So if you cross down, you get that, and then there's this one here, which was the first one after production of that. So in the process, we remain with that, 2,600 hours. Now, 2,600 hours cannot produce this, because this requires, as you check in that order, we are supposed to go to UNI. UNI requires 32. UNIT require 32. So UNIT require 3,200 hours for it to be produced. UNI require 3,200, and they only have that. And that's why there's a deficit of that. So in that context, it means UNI is facing competition, of course, from UNA, who needs that resource to, of course, make it sure that it's able to give the demand of 400 units, because 400 units are supposed to be also produced internally, apart from serving this demand here, because currently they are serving a demand, which is that. So they need some 400 units, and 400 units will require, of course, more resources, because if you are to produce this other last one, which is UNI, you don't have enough units, or you don't have enough hours to do that for that case. So that's where the shortage is. There is a shortage, and the shortage is that there is a shortage. We don't have enough hours to produce that. So we can only produce partly part of it, but also remember we have to produce 400. So this is why we are saying there is a basis for now to notice that here we need to produce. We need to produce, if I write what I'm talking about, we need to produce more of UNA in order to meet the demand of both external and internal demand. So we need more, and therefore if we need more, then it forces us to borrow some hours. So we need some hours to make sure we could that. And when you borrow that hours, then it creates a reason for us to calculate what is called the marginal, the minimum transfer price. So we require these hours. We require these hours. We require these hours from. We require these hours from UNA, because UNA is second in line. We require these hours from not from UNA, from UNI. From UNI, because UNI is supposed to be, the resources which are there were to be given to UNI. And in that context, UNI will have to be foregone. So UNI will have to be foregone for that case. So therefore we can calculate what is our minimum from that case. And that is the case, because as they have already a market which is there, so therefore the minimum TP, minimum TP would be marginal cost of UNA, and marginal cost of UNA is 14 plus contribution lost on not, because they have hours which they can shift to UNI. So the UNI will lose, because to service the demand, remember, we are taking that they will still want to service the external demand plus also the internal demand, unless they tell you otherwise. So they need another more hours to give UNI, because UNA requires some 400 units to be produced and be sold internally, which is that what we are saying here. So there is contribution lost on what? On not producing, as I'm saying again, there's contribution loss on not producing UNI. Is it UNI or UNA? The last one was called UNI, because the hours remained, these hours are supposed to go to UNI. But now there's an option of not producing UNI and then making UNA more to service that demand. So that means, how will we get that figure being calculated? I think I can put this here. How we get that figure calculated? It will be, you'll take this contribution that is being lost under UNI, which is this per hours, multiply by the hours that is supposed to be used to produce what is called UNA. And UNA, as you may notice, is supposed to use, of course, 5 hours to make a unit. And you multiply with that, it gives you this, and that is the minimum TP. This is the minimum transfer price. So we have our answer for that 10 marks. It should be that way.
Sorry, sir.
So that, and that should be the answer to that.
Question, sir.
Yes.
Come back on how you get this 16 to 50.
This?
How you get this contribution loss not on producing UNI?
It should be UNA.
It's the same logic I used previously also. That here, how we got 16 is 3,250 multiplied by, because this is a uni will not be produced. It will suffer. They will have to forego. Let me use that terminology. They'll have to forego uni to some extent to make sure, maybe even to zero, producing zero, to make sure they produce more of una. And to do that, therefore, they will lose this amount, which is that, because that is the contribution per age. And then if they lose that, then of course, that is what we're trying to say, they will be losing, and remember it is per hour. So multiply by how many hours will they be losing, or how many times in hours will they be losing, because they're giving those hours to this called UNA. So the hours that UNA uses is 5, which is why we are multiplying with 5 here to get that. It gives you that. And that's how we get 16. I think if you do that, you will get that. So you take this figure here, multiply with $5, and you get is equals to that. So that's what I did. 5 hours, sorry. 5 hours per unit, not dollars, hours per unit. So that's how we get, and that is the minimum. Because if you check here, we had a deficit, of course. These hours, first of all, cannot serve this, which we realize cannot serve this. So and also, it is not only that. At this point, we are supposed to produce uni and produce also una. So una will come in, and una will be produced at, let's say, 400. And the 400 will mean that they will still be going at that. And that will mean more hours will be used, which will be like 400, which is required, which will be that. So by the time we reduce here, there is a lot which has been foregone, which was supposed to be allocated to uni. And that hours that be foregone will be this. And by the time they do that, they only remain with very little hours, which is 600. And that is now where uni can be produced by that. If I was to go in a full way, then the hours that are remaining here are the ones that will be given now to uni. And the uni, remember, uni uses 4. Uni uses 4. So it means if I do all analysis, then uni can only be produced to this extent. And to this extent, it means they can only produce 600 divided by 4. And they can only produce 150. So that if you multiply by that, they have 600, which is equivalent to exact hours that will be there. So that is probably what could work for them. But this will have suffered a loss because there is a market that it will have foregone, because it was supposed to service.
I think 150 should be the demand.
Of 800. Yes?
Excuse me. I think
yes.
The 150 should be the demand instead of
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, you're correct. The 150 should be there. I put on the wrong side. So this should be 4. So that should be the case. That's what I'm trying to say, that because the new thing, that the proposal that came in on the basis of this was already existing. So these are external demand. So that will be the minimum price they can charge. Now, remember, there is an option they can buy externally outside. They can buy externally outside. So they will decide based on that. But this, of course, will affect the other one, because it will be an issue affecting the one which is relating to that. They can also buy outside. If they find internally is expensive, then they can choose this one. But internally, it seems cheaper because it's 30, 320, the minimum they can offer that. So they can agree or negotiate to use just 31, which is okay, and they buy internally because it will promote the company's issue. Or they decide, maybe there are options there. They can decide, of course, let's not engage in the 400, let's just continue producing uni if the loss is too much. So they have options. But that's the minimum. So I think that is it. It's done that way. Unless there is another question.
Why do we, on contribution loss, why do we consider the contribution loss of not producing uni?
Because you check this 2,600, this one is the resources which is under the first of all, the resource that was a problem was this available. But as we narrow down, this was priority, which was covered enough. This was priority, which was covered now. Now, the ones which are remaining, or this 2,600, this 2,600 is remaining with the option. So that's why the option which is involved is uni, because uni was supposed to be next in line. Is it true? Uni was supposed to be next in line because that is the order of our arrangement here. Uni is supposed to be the next in line. There is some hours to some extent which can cover uni, but these hours which can cover uni are on condition that there is also UNA is in second in ranking, and when we get to that point, we have to think we are now producing UNA. Should we produce UNA enough and deny uni some hours? That is where it comes as an issue to think, because at that time they have to stop and think at this point here when we got to UNA. UNA, immediately we entered in UNA, it was a thinking process because UNA is the one required. So at that point, the 2,600 are supposed to serve also uni, but UNA has also come in, and there is where it was why we used the uni. We used the uni because uni was the next in line. Based on even our arrangement, uni was to be the next in line. So if there is anything, is uni losing? Not UNO. UNO is already covered to the demand. So it is only uni which will be facing an option of choosing on it with the other one, which is the internal, the transfer price option that has come in. Unless there's a question. Yes.
Can you come back how you got this demand of 400 and 150?
400 is given here. 400 units is given here, is it? So the 400 is given here. The SIMACO requires CIMEX to transfer units of 400 units of UNA, which is where I got the 400. I didn't calculate it, it was there. So what I did to get is how 400 can be the input that is required to make 400. So to make 400, you require, of course, 5 hours, and then you multiply with that. So 400 is given, 400 is given. I didn't calculate it. It's given there. It's given, I think you could see here.
For me, I think UNA can be covered as well.
You think what?
UNA can be covered.
But it's covered here. That's what I said. It's here. This is UNA. The UNA is here. But the problem is, these hours were supposed to go to uni. So uni will not be produced as to some extent. Of course, uni was not to be produced to some extent, but it will even suffer more if UNA was to request more. And that's why we are saying like that.
Can you please come again in the question where it says uni has to be produced first before?
It is here. We did the ranking here. The ranking here is to say we are working as I say, there is limitation of resources. This one is a plan we are doing here. All this was to set the plan. All this, and this is the plan showing that it is supposed, the order of production is that this will be produced 1, this will be produced 2, and this will be produced 3. Why? Based on the problem they are having, it is that this makes more profit under that problem. You when you are suffering, when you are having problem, you don't put somebody who is poor to deal with the problem. You put somebody who is give better returns in comparison to or in relating to that problem. So that's where we selected it from that. So that's the idea. If you check that, that's what it will give us. Unless there is any other question. If there isn't a question, that is what it is from that case. You can be asked to set a price. We have just set. And it is similar to actually what we just did previously. In fact, I'll just send this there. but it's the same. It's the same issue, which is if you check, it is similar to this limit here. You could send to that Excel there. So it is similar to that. It is similar to that. So let me send it here because it's similar to this. The same way we did limited, this one here. We picked the contribution that is lost, and who was losing that? It was losing that same amount, and that amount is equivalent to the input that the other one will be using from that case, which is similar to this. It is this amount of 3250, which is being lost, but is lost equivalent to that resource that it is giving out to make the other one. And that one requires 5 hours to make it. So we multiply by this 5, which is here, and we multiply with this, which is under unit, and get that. Add it to the marginal, and you get is equals to that. And that is what we'll have as minimum. So if you don't have any other question, this congruence is theoretical issues. We already talked about it last time in details what it is. I even shared a slide on terms of that, you know, the goal congruence issue, what it goes through and all those cases. I think we cover that. You could check also what they may have explained and check it out in terms of that. So if there's no question, that's it for that case. I think we cannot reduce that because based on the somebody's asking why we cannot reduce 400 from units as we are aware that now the intention is this based on the ranking. Based on the ranking, if you reduce 400 from 500, then you will sell externally, you will sell 100. So you will sell 100 and then you meet the internal demand. But you see, based on the ranking, this one is making better profits. So it's rather you produce this the last one or even don't produce it. Uni. If you don't produce it, no problem, because the resources would have already expired for that, but you would have made a better decision. So you cannot, you know, the one which is giving better profit has to be always given the first priority. Somebody saying we deduct 400 here, not really. I don't think that is working because the idea is there is enough hours remaining. We don't need to fight inside here. When there is enough hours, when there is another, can you fight inside the house when there is food outside? So there's food outside. Let's go to the outside and negotiate that. The inside already, we have that. So what you're basically trying to say is that there is enough to cover this. This was not a competition. The problem is there enough to cover this? So this one, you don't need to compete on it. You don't compete where there is enough already. You compete where there is probably less. And less is on this area here. So unless there's another question, if there isn't, that was the question relating to that. Now, before I kind of move on, sometimes they may ask you to set a transfer price, or they ask you to simply prepare what? To prepare, like in July. July, they were simply asking the student to evaluate. So you just prepare a transfer price report, where I think you could notice all you needed was to arrange, you know, this minus that plus this and whatever. That could be also questions like that. And I think when it comes to that, you should notice that in such scenario, we don't add inter-transfers issues, as you may notice that in case of whatever we go through from that case. So somehow, as I'm trying to say, is that if they set a question, they can set, either they ask you, like in this case, to determine the transfer price, or they can ask you to, of course, just do a statement to show how it will come out in form of maybe certain issues evaluating using the transfer price that is agreed. Then you can maybe comment either all of the companies or all of the divisions are of course performing well or not. So just to make sure you understand that, and that is what also maybe you could add from that as a part of also understanding this. So July is basically they need the students to prepare such issues where you have to, of course, deal with it from that angle. So that is what I need to say. So unless, by the way, there is also, before I do that, July, there's also what is called international transfer pricing. Yeah? International transfer pricing is also something is usually more kind of theoretical, because the basic issues are already, what you have covered is all that is required to be known there. I don't think there is anything I've left out for that case. But if you go to international transfer pricing, it's usually beneficial to companies. Some companies may use it for reduction of taxes. There are some benefits that international transfer pricing bring. But after some time, there is a case which was in America that brought some problems, because there are many companies used to do transfer pricing, and they use it to evade tax. Because because one of the benefits of transfer pricing is that it can make you reduce taxes. If you go to like RRA, you will notice they have a rule that you cannot go beyond certain percentages. You cannot go beyond certain percentages, and that is a rule which they try to. They say at least 2% of the revenue cannot be allowed, because most companies use transfer pricing as a way of also, transfer pricing is used on tax implication. Transfer pricing may be used to reduce your revenues, and when you reduce your revenue, because it's a cost, if you are transferring like to a company which is in Mauritius, then it reduces what could be tax base or tax for that. So RRA usually has 2%. They don't go beyond 2% of that. So transfer pricing is mainly can be used to manage those international issues, which brings some problem. It can reduce income tax by recognizing, income in low tax rate countries. So it has some benefits. There's some benefits. I think you read that, as you have noticed how it is. Why will it reduce the tax? Because it is a cost. Like you may have a subsidiary, maybe like there could be a subsidiary in Mauritius, and the parent is in Mauritius and the subsidiary is in Rwanda. So they charge them management fee. So this management fee can reduce some of the taxes issues. But countries come up with a way of trying to manage that. Now, one time it happened in America, and this was the case which changed how things were treated. Many companies used it for some time, until in America in 1957, there was a case of, if you may research it, of Eli and Lilly case, which created they realized the company was transferring, you say it was a pharmaceutical company based in United States that had subsidiary in Canada. So they used to transfer almost all the revenue to, the Canadian used to transfer, and all those cases. They used to play along between the two. And the tax authority kind of realized that actually the company was making profit, but because of transfer price, it was making it have that. So many countries, they came up with how to deal with that. And that's why even the RRA asked that. So there is that implication. I've attached here that case. You would see how it is. The outcome of this went that it was determined that transfer price was needed to be low and did not reflect the fair value of course, the drug and all those cases. So there was an outcome which came out of this case, and it changed how transfer price was realized. Because Elia would set, the company which was called Eli would set certain transfer prices which were making it to produce the charges. So on international level, that's how it is. But I'll have a summary, which of course I will attach, maybe if you need to go through, is more theoretical. It explains how the international transfer price can use to reduce taxes. But other countries have come up with a way of course, trying to avoid that being an issue, because according to those cases, they realized that it was, they were losing taxes a lot. Okay. I just wanted to highlight on that because I realize time is going, but because we're now focused on trying to do a question. But there's a question here which I wanted to go through. So you will check this case study. I think I've attached here, I shared this already, which you could check and see, and you could search. Most of you, of course, have the internet and whatever. You could search on that case study. It can build up your skills on understanding why the transfer price was an issue in 1957 because of that case which came up, and it set countries to know that transfer pricing is something that is good, but also should be watched and be understood how it is to be managed to avoid exodus of, can you say exodus of tax or something like that? Anyway, let me come back to this July. So sometimes the question can be set where they need you to only show the performance. This was set in July. I think it was part of the compulsory area. If you check July 2022, you could see it there. I pasted here. I wanted to do like a second one. And then, of course, I can wrap this up, and maybe next time we don't need to talk about transfer pricing a lot. I think the rest is just to struggle to catch up with questions here and there. There is enough questions on this area, and maybe unless a question is there, you can easily ask me. So this was set in July. This was set in July, as you may check in the past paper. If you find there is a July, which is July 2022. So let me open the PDF. We read through first, and then we see. So it's a part of July. There is a transfer price which was set. Apart from that, there is also August. I think I shared with you the summary of that. So you'll check that and see how they have been set in the process of that. And maybe you could practice and understand. Now that I've told you the rules, or now that you have an idea about the rules, then you could check it out. So July, I think it's maybe this one, July. If you check July, I think this is the answers. Where is July here? July. I think I had July. July 2022. So July 2022, you only need to prepare a statement and use it for that case. As it is not requiring you to determine the transfer price, because somebody was asking how do they this will assist you to know how they set the questions in form of that. I think it only focuses, its focus, it's not the whole of it, because it entails some others here, but some of them were to be done differently. This is the question here. 13 marks was supposed to come from transfer price, and then discuss changes of the measures and blah, blah, blah. That is also something else. And of course, looking towards that, you could easily answer this by what we have or the knowledge you have, and then discuss the problem that could arise of divisional performances, because other divisions were there. Other divisions were there, other divisional performances were there. Like there was a residual was being asked. There was, I think, return on capital employed was also being tested there. Those are divisional performances, but there was this also transfer price, which is this one here. This is what they say. Rusizi Group is a well-known company operating in Rwanda. It has two divisions, A and B. Each division produces only one type of product. A produces product X, and B produces a final product HK. So that's what it is. Then the final product HK usually uses product X as input, and each HK needs 1 unit of X. So Rusizi Group, so that means this division A, which produces, of course, a product called X, is supposed to be transferred to division B. So you have that idea. And I think they are saying Rusizi Group operates a highly competitive market for both product X and final product HK. Its pricing is sensitive. Product X is produced by many other companies, by many other producers, in the market. But it is expected that the external demand for the next year could rise to 2,000 units more than the selling quantity presented in the current budget for Division A. The following are budgeted data as extracted from Rusizi Group internal information system for both division for the year. So there's particulars, there's Division A, there's Division B, cost of sales, variable cost, contribution, fixed cost, which is controllable, meaning can be managed, other, which is giving a profit of that. As you may notice, there is other information, production or stock sales is 10,000 in terms of that, and 6,000 of the units are transferred to 6,000 of division A division A are transferred to division B, and then production capacity, it can produce 10,000 and produce 14. Then external market price is 40 and 90. Capital employed is equals to that. That will be used for other cases. And then cost of capital charge, this may be used for residual and the rest of that. So the external demand for division is as follows. Division A, 6,000 units, only 4,000 units of which can be currently satisfied. And then division B. What? Just a okay, let me mute somebody. So just before I clear this, they say that all, they say 6,000 units, only 4,000 units of which can be currently satisfied. And then the division B, all produced output is sold to the external market. And then it is also Rusizi Group policy that divisional managers' performances should be evaluated against the 4 measures based on the data above. Budgeted performances for the 2 divisions are as follows. So you have that. There is residual, as you may notice, there is a return on capital employed or return on investment, and then there is operating and all those cases. So then there is a existing current Rusizi policy in Rusizi Group. There is a policy that product X should be transferred to division B at a marginal cost. At a marginal cost of 20 francs per item. And B must buy all the quantity it needs from A. Proposed also Rusizi Group policy. Rusizi Group is proposing of giving the division manager the freedom to set their own transfer price and buy the products from external suppliers, but there are concerns about the problems that could arise by granting such autonomy. Of course, that is something we have been talking about. Usually the division manager is given the powers to make such decisions, but sometimes they can lead to crisis. But to solve that, we have gone through some rules. So if division autonomy is granted to division manager and transfer price of the product is set by the manager of division A at current market price. So they have given us the price already, the current market price. Recalculate the budgeted performance measures for each division. So sometimes they give you, there was a question where somebody was asking, now like how about the modality of the questions? So which I said sometimes they can set a question where they give you, or they ask you to determine, like the one you have been doing, we determined the minimum. But in another context, they could ask also what could be the maximum of the other side. But of course, the data for the other side was not given. So it was not possible for us to set the maximum. If you check that previous question we have just done, I didn't see the other data for the other case. So we only asked to set the minimum, which was enough for what was required at that moment. So anyway, that question is the one which I have posted here. It was in the compulsory area. So it is one which is here. I think it's the one exactly. Yeah, so it is this one. I hope, because sometimes I may have posted the wrong one. So it's this one here. So they are saying if they did the current market charges, so they have given you already a transfer price. So if they give you transfer price, don't go and start to calculate. All you need is to evaluate. So what we need here is to prepare an evaluation. And that's what you need to do. And they find out what to give. Is it going to improve or is it going not to improve? That is what we need to do. So it's not always, whenever they are testing you, is that they need you, of course, always to find the transfer price. Sometimes they give you, like here they have told us to use the market. So we'll say the performance evaluation. We need just to prepare a profit and loss scenario, of course. So we need to prepare an operating statement under the market, under TP of market price, at current market price. So that's the market price they're giving us. So that's what I need to do. So we have division, just to do quickly before time gets us up. We have the divisions. So there's this division, division A, and then there's this division, division B, because I can see time is moving. And then there is the selling, which I need to factor in and get what it is. So we need to get the sales, which we need to factor to figure out, and we find out what it will be. And of course, if you check, we will need to also understand how to deal with that sales for that. So for division B, nothing, no problem. The sales will still be as it is, 540, because it is selling externally. The one we are concerned about will be A, because A has agreed on certain issues. Now, remember, A has external, what it can sell external, and what it can sell internal. And it produces 10,000. It produces 10,000. This is A here. A produces 10,000. So 10,000, there is what it can sell internally. And that's why I could easily put this aside here so that I split it here. So this is external for all, a column, a row, and then there is internal. Internal, it means the transfer scenario. Right? So in terms of external, for this case, as you may notice, they can sell, because we have 10, so 6,000 should go to division B. So 6,000 will go externally, and they say it is 6,000 multiplied by 40. So 6,000 multiplied by 40. Because they say the current market price is this one here. So they say if it changes to the current market price, which is this 40 here, so we could sell it at 40, and that is what we have. Then externally, the balance, because in their context, they have how many units? They have 10,000. So if you would insert here, we are trying to say that only, because of time, I need to do that quickly here. There is a 10,000. So the 10,000 is that 6,000 will go externally, no, internally. So this will go internally. And then 4,000 will go externally, or will be sold externally, which is the 4,000 that we are talking about here. So 4,000 multiplied by the charges they sell, of course, externally, which is, of course, 40 still. And there's overally, you have your revenue for that case, and overally here, they don't have internally. So that is what will be giving us figures. So this is what you could call maybe to say total sales. It could be safe enough if we call it total sales. Now, variable cost. Let's narrow down to variable cost. That's what is needed for that case. So some question come in form of that. And remember, when you are combining, you don't need to bring this transfer price here. I already said it is will be covered in terms of other cases. Anyway, so the variable cost, we have variable cost, we can produce a working on it and see. Now, remember here, we have some units that are being relating to that. I don't think we need to change any variable cost here. So we'll just say a variable cost as a heading and then do the variable cost analysis here. The variable cost, there is nothing much to adjust there, but in case you need it, it is simply because we don't have any other issue we can factor in. It is simply to take the figure which is here, divide by 10, and get it will give you still 20. It will be the same anyway, nothing much. So this will be still be 200, sorry. That will still be 200. So that is the variable cost. Next is, as we check, we have, of course, to deal with the contribution. But before that, let's check this side. This side, they will have to buy. So they will incur, there is what we call, this is variable cost. This one has additional cost. Remember, it has additional cost, but it also has what we call transfer price. So I could put it here. TP, maybe I could put TP, transfer cost, something like that. I could put them in the column there. So transfer cost, of course, will come here because it buys from here. 240, is it? 240, it's a cost on it. So there's additional cost of its own, which it has. Now, I need to split that figure because currently, if you check, they have this figure here, which, of course, because it's already including the previous, they said they were transferring at marginal, meaning they were transferring at 20. Maybe I could do a working here to show that. Remember, existing existing TP transfer is $20, is 20 franc, because they said they want to change to the current market because there was an issue about it. If you check it, it said somewhere down there, because there's a policy. They say that Rusizi is proposing giving a division of freedom to set a transfer price to buy that and blah, blah. But of course, it's saying that they were using the current price. I think it is somewhere said up here. Either, I think I remember clearly where they were saying that there is that price which they are using, so they need us to change. They're using marginal. There's a context which they say marginal here. I think I'll check that. The figures there are small. I'll check later. So they were using a marginal. Marginal means they were using 20. Marginal means they were using 20. So it means in that context, when they were transferring, they transferred 6,000. So I want to split this figure here to find out what is additional and what is transferred. So it means the transfer, because the existing they were using marginal. This is a marginal. I'll type later on in details probably. They were using marginal cost, and marginal cost was 20 franc. So let me admit somebody. So therefore, if marginal was 20 franc per unit, then in this cost that we have here, this variable cost that we have here, this variable cost that we have, which is this, it means if you check, it is supposed to have this figure here, but inside it, there are two costs, additional and the transfer. So the transfer point of this is, of course, the one that I need to take out. Previously, they were transferring 6,000 multiplied by $20 to 20 franc, which is equal to that. So if you subtract that, then you find this minus this will give you 108 for that case. So 108 means is the additional cost. I am splitting it because it must be combined here. So it must, because they gave us one lump sum figure. So it's up for me to sort that mess. So there is additional cost, which is this one. So additional cost, which is the incur on independent level, is that figure. I think you got me, or you get it, because it's a transfer price or transfer cost to whoever is buying. So that is what I need here. And I think from working number 2, or from working number, is it 1? We only did one working, because for sales, I didn't do any working. So that gives me that. So overall, that is my variables. Overall, that is my total variable cost, total VC. So we have that. So as you move across, of course, you need to get contribution, which is this minus that. And you have what is called contribution. So I don't need to, I can pick it just the figure here rather than typing. So that is the contribution. Of course, you need similarly this minus this. So we are simply doing a performance evaluation for that. So as you move down, you also focus now on the other issues. We need to find out what could be the other cases that they have apart from that. So we have that. Let's check the fixed issues. They have a fixed cost of that, which we need, of course, to factor in and find out how it is. And of course, that is what we need to do next. And of course, we deal with that and get what is the profit as relating to what we have from that basis. Unless there is anybody with a question who has not seen what I've done, next is just to deal with the rest of those cases, because we already have a profit, which is contribution. Then we subtract the fixed cost and get what it will be. Fixed cost, we have it here. For this one here, I think it's 50. So you just bring it. Fixed cost is not affected in this analysis as such. It's just something I need to deduct there. So fixed cost is, of course, 50. And the fixed cost on that side, it seems to be, as it is from that case, we have 150. So let me put a minus on it so that it subtracts automatically. So you get that, and that's it. So that's it. You know, for the transfer price, this is the answer to that. That's the answer to that. Unless there is anybody with a question there, which will relate to this, we could easily also think about it or discuss in terms of it. So the transfer price will be that, Transfer price will be that. But remember, that question wants you to calculate other things like residual, return on investments, which you could do as already gone through that. But what they wanted for us to do was if it is granted and they decide to use current, recalculate. So we get 13 marks for that. So each division will have that. Each division will have that. If it is a company as a whole, then of course you notice we say as a whole, you notice that we say some cost will not come here. We'll only pick what will be sold externally, because externally will bring for the company. This one is an internal, it doesn't affect this. So you will only have that and pick it like that. This one here, the transfer doesn't come here. So we only pick this one here, as of course it carries what we need from that case. And the rest we pick this one here because it's additional. And of course, by the time we are done, we should be having our contributions, which will be summation of that, and then getting the contributions if it was to be anything, which is supposed to be that way, which is easily that. And that is how they share the profit, which this will share 1 this, and this shares 200, which sums up to that. And of course, as you take the fixed cost, which is of course for that case, so if you deduct that, you get your profit, which is 192, and it is shared by this making 150 and this sharing 42. So anyway, that's the case. Unless there is anybody with a question on that, that is sometimes a question where they tell you to do the evaluation of what is given as a transfer price. So it's okay if I was to comment anything. The companies, the division, still all of them makes a profit, because they say here discuss the changes, the changes to the performances measure of the division that would arise from altering the transfer price from this. Meaning, if you were to discuss, of course, is a change issue, I need to discuss from the point of current issue, this will increase its profit. This will increase the profit by 120, if I'm right, and this will reduce the profit because there will be some shifting in the cost. So there will be that issue. Of course, it was making 162, so currently it will make only that. So this will, of course, take a big chunk of that differences and then make a better profit, because the difference we create changes, we create the differences, and the differences will shift to realize that change. So unless there is a question, the rest requires doing a residual. I think we went through the residual issue from that position, because if you check, next one is number 3 here, discuss the problems that could arise from divisional managers and the RUSIZI group as a whole, resulting from autonomy to the division managers, and how to adapt dual price for 2 tariff issues. Now, there is how you may come out of, I have made a slide, how you can come out of how to resolve transfer price issues, which I'll share, which includes the explanation of that dual. And that one is the last part I can share for the day. The other part I'll do probably later, just, residual we already went through. So proposal for resolving transfer price conflicts, there is this one thing. You can do what's called dual transfer pricing. Now, what is dual? I've put some systems there. You could see, we have revealed transfer price methods that do not perfectly align to decision-making performances and the division autonomy. We propose 2 alternatives to solve these conflicts. One of them is dual rate transfer pricing. Dual rate transfer pricing system uses 2 separate pricing to price each interdivision transaction. The supply division receives full cost plus markup, while the receiving division is charged at marginal variable cost of the transfer. So that's what it is. As you may check that is what the dual would explain. The dual rate transfer pricing uses 2 separate pricing to price each interdivision transfer. So the supply division receives full cost plus markup, while the receiving division is, of course, the receiving division is charged at a marginal, which is variable cost of the transfer. So that is what's called dual pricing, which is that. You may also transfer at marginal cost plus fixed lump sum fee. That's another way. This method, interdivision transfer, are priced at a marginal cost plus a fixed lump sum fee, meaning it is not a percentage. It is an agreed smaller figure or figure. This provides an incentive for optimal decision making while still meeting the performance requirements. So those are what it is. So resolving transfer pricing conflicts, dual transfer pricing, the supply division receives at full cost plus markup, and we have, of course, the transfer at a marginal cost plus a fixed lump sum fee. Interdivision are transfer are priced at a marginal cost plus fee. By implementing either the dual rate transfer price system or transfer at marginal cost plus lump sum fee, companies can mitigate the conflicts between decision making and performance evaluation and division autonomy. So that's it. Perfect transfer pricing method. In perfect world, where the external market for the intermediate product closely approximates that perfect competition, transfer at the long run marginal cost would align decision making and performance evaluation and maintaining division autonomy. So in a perfect world, the issue is that all of them should be able to embrace that which is better. We say that the external market for the intermediate product closely approximate that the perfect market competition transfers at a long run marginal cost would align decision-making, performances, evaluation, and maintaining division autonomy. So that's how we solve that. I'll share that. Impact of division autonomy. I've said again, it's a repetition of what we have gone through just to emphasize. Dual rate transfer pricing, which is division autonomy, may compromise by central headquarters intervening to ensure that marginal cost of transfers is met, and then transfer at marginal cost plus a fixed lump sum fee, preserving a division autonomy as the managers are motivated to transfer goods and services internally to the profit margin included in the transfer price. So that's what I could say for that. I think aligning performance evaluation and optimal decision, again, we have emphasized what it does. It aligns that and solve those issues. And I think I don't need to talk about that. So there is a conflict in transfer pricing. No perfect transfer pricing method exists that can perfectly meet all requirements of the decision making and performance evaluation while maintaining division autonomy. So transfer at marginal cost is unsuitable for performance evaluation. It does not provide incentives for internal transfer without a profit, and transfer cost at a cost plus markup conflicts with optimal division, and as managers are incentives by the transfer rather than company perspective. So anyway, I'll share this slide. This explains the dual, which is also what was asked, as you may see here. There's need to know those are the two methods we used to solve, and others, of course, we used to solve this system here where there is a conflict between them. They asked the student to discuss the problems that could arise from the divisional managers and the Rusizi group as a whole, as resulting in giving autonomy to the division managers, and how to adapt dual price and two tariff system approach that can fix. Dual price is the same as two price. I don't know why they put it separate, but the same issues. So it will be able to fix that issue, and that is how we go through that. Unless there is a question on that, I think I've talked a lot. It's now time for the question. If there's no question, the rest is the struggle of to try to get the best of transfer price. I don't have much to say about it. Next time we'll do non-financial and strategic management issues. The balance scorecard, the fizzle block mode, this blocking model and stuff like that. Because if we check, I think if you don't have a question, if you check, there is a certain aspects of things that you may need to also go through, kind of somehow they have also a question like balance scorecard and the rest of those which you may find necessary if it is in the context of what you want to cover. Question? I've been talking a lot, so it's time for maybe questions. I think even I'm thirsty. I need to take something now. Some water, maybe.
It's not a question, but it's like a suggestion. To make a revision, it helps us when it is shared as early as possible, so that we can make a revision.
It's okay. I think I tried to do that. I think I'll share that. No worry. I think last time I shared immediately the following day, so I'll share. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
Going
last
to
time you did it in the right time, and it could be better if it will be the same.
It's okay. I'll share immediately as I make sure that everything is in order. Sometimes before I share like the what the Excel, I need to check if because sometimes when I'm calculating, maybe I have used some shortcuts in writing. Maybe like I type maybe marginal as MC and MR. So I always try to check that before I send the Excel. But I'll share. I think I'll have time to check for that case, and then I can share immediately after this. Unless there is anybody with another question.
Yes.
So
another last one is to get a quick map, a quick catch up of this transfer. And as I can see, it's a key chapter likely to be asked, but it's not an easy chapter. It's somehow so complicated. As you as you promised to make some summary. I don't know when it will be done.
Yes, I said I'll make a summary of the somebody asked me to make a summary of the rules, which I said I'll make in the due course, and I'll attach in the Excel because I'll share the Excel. So I said I'll make that because immediately after I finish the examples, I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the summary I'll make it as to explain, but I said the main issue is that the rule is the same. The difference is the option it means, which creates extended part of the rule. There is just an extension of whatever we started with, which is marginal cost is the minimum cost for the selling division, and the maximum cost for the buying division is the net marginal revenue. Then the additionals come in because of other things. It's like meat. You can introduce in certain virungos and change the taste and all that. So, but the fundamental is that when you're frying, you use tomatoes and maybe fuel, oil and stuff like that. So the issue is just the add-ons. The additionals kind of modified. They not really kind of modify. Add something on it to the rule. And even here they say perfect market. I think if you read Kaplan, they tell you that the perfect competitive market for product is when it is transferred at a market price, it is the perfect market. I was trying to explain this in the slide here, which is what I was talking about, what is called the perfect market for that. So anyway, I think it's already 9. We don't need to go. That is a perfect transfer price method, which comes from external. As this is what I'm trying to say here. It's coming from external as a concern of that. Anyway, we can stop here. I don't have anything to say. If there is nothing also from your side, I think you could easily call it a day. So that is the case there. I was just trying to show you that. If you check in Kaplan, you will see Kaplan also emphasizing that the perfectly competitive market for products, services are transferred. Transfer price is equals to market. Now, the Kaplan also explain a diagram here of what you have gone through. Somebody who is having some struggle with those rules here, they are here. Transfer price negotiated between the minimum prices will be equal to minimum price of selling division will be equal to marginal cost. Maximum price will be maximum price buying division will pay, which is lower of external purchase price of the transfer products, and net marginal revenue, i.e. selling price minus marginal cost of the buying division. So you could use Kaplan. I think you could get some issues that transfer price negotiated between minimum price of the division will accept is equals to marginal price plus lost contribution. This is where they say in scenario 3, the selling division does not have any surplus capacity. So check those scenarios, and they have diagrams in kind of giving what we have been talking through, in fact, of what it is here. This is scenario 3. I think there is a scenario 2, and I think there must be scenario 1, which is somewhere maybe above there. So if you check, this kind of summarized those. I don't see scenario 1, but I think scenario 1 is maybe mentioned somewhere. I'm just showing reference. Maybe if you need further reference, because somebody say, oh, scenario 1 is this. Perfect. Perfect is the one which is scenario 1. I did not read the scenario, that as a scenario. So there is those general rules. Check Kaplan again. Anybody who has, you could check Kaplan has those rules there. So again, I'm giving you a reference as apart from what I'll give you, a reference book, you could check Kaplan has that, and it's structured well here, explaining what it is, and even coming to what we have been doing that, and then saying scenario 3, explaining what it is. We have been going through that. Marginal cost plus lost contribution from other, that maximum is equals to the buying, blah, blah, lower of external, and that. And that's what we did. So if there is no question, I've given you some reference. I'll give you also from my point of view, and then we can close this. And thank you for coming. Good night. So check that. You'll get it.
When do we meet next time? Sunday?
I think it's Sunday for Kigali campus. For those in Kigali, it's Sunday, is it? Sunday morning, we're supposed to meet to continue with the short term. I think it was break even and the blah blah issues of short term issues as we would look towards. So the idea will be we will meet to try to finish the short term and do the linear if time allows us. And then because we have like one class remaining, which will be, my target is to do budget and hopefully I can see there will be a problem of doing variances in class properly, because variance is always, you start with the basic and it takes time before you get to the advanced and operational. So if it will not really like work in the class physically, it will force we do online some of those variances, unless we create extra issue. Because if you look at it, it will not be possible for that case. For that case, maybe you can discuss later on. So good night.
Good night too.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.